Hi everyone. In this module, we'll discuss just why charters are so important, and then we'll cover in detail the elements that I want you to include in your charters: scope overview, business case, milestone schedule, risks, and stakeholder lists, as well as other elements such as lessons learned from previous projects. So what's so important about a project charter? Well, the project charter authorizes the commitment of resources to a project and in fact grants the project and the project manager official status within the organization. The sponsor, as a busy executive, tends to write a first draft. However, the project manager and some team members usually draft the bulk of the charter. Of course, the sponsor must approve it. Since it includes a business case for the project and a high-level scope statement, a charter facilitates a common understanding between the project team and sponsor. Although the charter represents a quote-unquote best understanding of the project's high-level scope, milestones, and risks, the charter can and should be revised to reflect major project changes. The sponsor, project manager, and core team sign the project charter, and their signatures reflect their commitment to the project. The charter approval signifies that the project can now move into the formal planning stages. The term charter may be substituted with project request, project submission form, or project pre-planning form, among others. Not too surprisingly, a charter begins with a title such as Charter Birdhouse Project or Charter Team Space Update and Reconfigure. In fact, as we progress through this video, we'll discuss a charter for the latter project. More to come. The next element of a charter is a scope overview, which is a high-level description of what needs to be accomplished and how it will be done. It also includes requirements, which include a condition and/or competence that satisfies the expectations of the sponsor, customer, and other stakeholders. Let me say that again. I want to really emphasize it. It also includes requirements, which include a condition or competence that satisfies expectations of the sponsor, customer, and other stakeholders. We recently discussed scope, requirements, and stakeholders in our Chapter 1 video. Although some internal projects do not develop formal budgets, if a preliminary budget is developed, it should include the level of confidence in the estimate and should also identify expenses the project manager can authorize, that is, what is inside and out of the project manager's purview. In subsequent slides, we'll discuss the business case, milestone schedule, and risks and assumptions in detail. We'll then return to this slide to briefly address the remaining elements of the project charter. Scope includes everything involved in creating the project's product. For example, you are working with a general contractor to build a new home, which is the product. If you had originally chosen to go without a fireplace in the master bedroom, that fireplace is outside the project's scope. Quality is the fulfillment of a project's requests and can have to do with meeting measurements, as in producing a widget that is within 1/1000th of a millimeter of its ideal specification. Quality can also mean that an item does exactly what the customer wants it to do. Think about an intuitive user interface that new users find simple. Obstacles or challenges may limit the ability to perform. These generally involve cost or time constraints. For example, whoever has unlimited time to complete a project or has a budget with no defined ceiling. Opportunities, on the other hand, may allow projects to exceed original expectations. This slide includes the first two sections in the project charter. As you can see, the project scope involves replacing equipment and furniture in a predefined space so that one microdoodle project team can be co-located in the same space. Important note, this project involves a team working to remodel a space so that another team can be co-located in a space that will allow them, as a cohesive team, to be more productive. The business case for the project points to research that indicates that co-located project teams are more successful. The product of this project, that is, the remodeled space, allows a new team to be co-located there so that this concept can be tested. Milestones often mark a point after which a large expenditure may be approved. They also may mark the end of a design phase, software code complete, for example. Measurement can be as simple as answering the question, does the deliverable exist? For example, has all hardware necessary for the project been closed and/or ordered? Or it may mean checking performance requirements and essential conditions. A stakeholder assigned in the charter is responsible for determining whether the deliverable is acceptable. Risks are reminders of what could prevent successful completion of the project, or, in some cases, what might make the project more successful. The more comprehensive the list of risks, the more likely the team is to discover problems before they occur. Any risk that may inhibit successful project completion needs to be identified, and a plan must be developed to overcome it. Of course, we'll learn more on risk planning and mitigation in a subsequent module. To switch gears to assumptions, remember that in our charter, technology has already been ordered, and it's assumed that it will function successfully. If it does not, the ramifications are pretty negative. In other words, a false assumption becomes a risk. In addition, a constraint that limits money, time, or resources is also a risk. As noted in the previous slide, a comprehensive list and analysis of risks and assumptions is really critical. These, though, on the charter, are considered top-level critical risks, and there's one opportunity that should absolutely be monitored. The first two would delay the project schedule, while the final one would get in the way of its quality. The third item represents an opportunity. If top management continues to believe it's important to move the new team in as soon as possible, then the expense of expediting or crashing the project may be worth considering. Note, we'll learn about crashing during our module on scheduling. In an organization that does project management well, lessons learned from previous projects are all archived into a database. These can provide direction for subsequent projects, and it makes sense to include key points from similar projects in a project charter. And lessons learned does not merely mean, what did you do wrong? It also means, what were our successes? Specific suggestions from previous similar projects, see the example on the next slide, can make a big difference to the success of this project. As noted in the previous slide, these lessons from our sample charter were captured after previous similar projects, space reconfigurations and moves, for example, were completed. They serve as reminders for this project team so that this project will be even more successful. And of course, this team will accumulate its own lessons over the life of the project. The elements we've already covered are grayed out, So, to address team operating principles, they're established to enhance team functioning and effectiveness and to ensure that all parties are aware of what is expected. Useful team operating principles deal with conducting meetings, making decisions, accomplishing work, and treating each other with respect. The project sponsor, project manager, and core team members show commitment by signing the charter. I'll make the entire sample charter available to you so that you can see the document as a whole. Remember, though, that charters can vary widely, depending on the size and complexity of the project. Your text provides a project charter decision matrix, which is Exhibit 4.2, that can be helpful in determining the extent of the project and how that might affect a charter. I hope you found this lecture helpful, and I'll look forward to reviewing your project charters.